Are we here? There we go. Are we here, folks?
There we are.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I think we're live, right? Well, I want to thank Eventide for allowing us ragamuffins to come onto their extremely high-end program. And it's been a real joy to be asked, and also to reach out to all of you. I'm Brick Briscoe, and those watching and watching later, I should tell you a little bit about what's going on. I'm in the midst of making a film called Music is Dead, Long Live Music. And it's a documentary kind of about the situation as musicians and artists we've been put in over the last 1,000 years. I don't know, but it's really visible right now to a lot of us. And throughout this process of making this documentary, I've spoken to 60 artists from all over the world, and I've gotten some really interesting feedback. It's not anything what I thought the movie was going to be about, and I thought this would be a good thing for us to talk about here today. Before we get started with that, I want everybody to introduce themselves, and I'm going to go around the room as I see you. I don't know how you see it. Up in the top left-hand corner is a guy I've worked with several times, and he's a go-to musician, studio guy in general, and it's Patrick Preston. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Patrick.
Yeah, recording engineer, freelance recording engineer, also a musician and producer. I currently live in Evansville, Indiana. I'm originally from Mississippi, and yeah.
You're constantly on the go, if I remember. You know, it seems like you're always in Vegas or somewhere else, or conducting a choir somewhere.
Absolutely, it's a little bit of everything. Yeah.
The other person from my region of the world is a bass player who's renowned for playing with Bosco France. He's like a go-to guy in our community, and also I would say in the Midwest in general, and that's Cory Folz. He's also a music retailer. How you doing, Cory?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I work as a freelance bass player in several groups, including a group that's close to your heart, and along with several other artists. I also work for one of the coolest guitar shops in all of the Midwest.
Yeah, what's that called?
It's called More Music and moreguitars.com.
There you go. I like the shirt.
Thank you.
A friend of mine, Eric Amble, introduced me to Sarah Borges' music a few years ago, and I've been following you ever since. Sarah, welcome to this chat from Boston, huh?
Thanks, Brick. I'm glad to be here, and I wish it was under a little different circumstances, but I do live in Boston. I'm a touring musician and a mom, and I actually have had no other job other than one quick, brief stint in an office. So this is the total sum of my life is what we're talking about right now.
Do you miss the office ever?
Now. Maybe I should have stuck with that, but no, sitting upright for so long except in a van is detrimental to my health.
No doubt. Our next guest is also from the Boston area. I think you're a little south of Boston, and you joined us here at the last minute because something came up in Brian Mullins' life, and we really appreciate it. And we've done a lot of things together, Mr. Matt York.
We have, yes. I guess you and I met in New York for as part of the Outlaw Roadshow 3-4 years ago, I guess, at this point.
Seems like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I generally perform solo. I perform all over the place, and that's what I do.
A funny little aside about you, Matt, is that when I first met you, you were doing the punk rock thing, and now you're almost doing country music. What happened?
I couldn't make my schedule work with other people that play instruments. So, you know, it's a lot easier to sit on my couch at 5 a.m. and mess around than it is to, you know, with 2 kids and a day job to find time at night. So
it's easier to get everybody to rehearsal now, isn't it?
It is. All of my personalities are available early in the morning.
This next guy is, I think, in Austin, Texas right now. I've seen you, Kay, on big stages, like in stadiums, and I've seen you in dive bars. I've seen you all over. How you doing? Why are you here today?
I'm great. I'm here because I heard we get free Eventide H9s.
Yeah, we're gonna have a drawing after that.
Is that not
Patrick's
the
paying
case?
for the one we're going to give away.
Cool.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Kay.
I used to tour, but now I just do live streams, and I guess I'm setting up a little studio space at home and writing songs and learning how to do video and lighting for my live streams.
Well, you have the best lighting of all of us right now, so good job. So we'll
Really?
get back to some of these details in a little bit. This last guy, gosh, I met Sal, I think in a Thai restaurant in Indianapolis with a good friend of ours, Frank Finaro. And when I was sick, Sal sent me a book. And I thought, oh, this is going to get me through 35 days in the hospital. And I read it the first night. It's so good. But a bass player with incredible background and just an all-around amazing guy, Sal Maida. How you doing, Sal?
I'm doing great, Mr. Brick. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what your book's called. I can never remember all those words.
My book's called 4 Strings, Phony Proof, and 345s. I describe it as 3 books in one. It's not your typical autobiography. I didn't want to write a typical autobiography. So a third of it is growing up where I grew up in Little Italy in New York City, with all the mob guys and the whole bit from, when I was a kid. And then I basically ran away to England to get away from everything and started my career as a musician. So that's in the book, and all the bands I've been to see, that's described in the book. I've seen everyone from the Beatles to the Sex Pistols to Otis Redding, White Stripes, on and on and on. And then the last third of the book is my 300 favorite 45s of the period, sort of the late 50s to 78. And the book is not in chronological order. I didn't want to start with, he was born in Manhattan General at 5, and then his parents, So it's all out of order, and it's been a pretty critically successful book. I mean, I haven't sold 1 million copies. I haven't been on the New York Times bestseller list, but I got rave reviews and from David Frick and Rolling Stone and magazines like that. So that's that portion. And I played with plenty of people over the years, one of which was yourself, Brick Briscoe.
That's true. But I tell you what, you about broke my heart when you told me you had that short stint with Echo and the Bunnymen. That just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, why can't I play bass?
It's funny because that was a very recent thing. That was 2016. And it was about 4 gigs, and I can't speak highly enough of them as a band and as people. It was just one of the best experiences of my long career.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool.
Well, we're going to hear about that career, I think, as this goes on, because I'm sure you're going to have some opinions about some of the things we're going to talk about. In the process of making this film, I've talked to people in France and Ireland and England and California, all over the globe, artists of all statures, really famous to people who are teenagers just starting out. I remember when I thought I was starting out, I was 16. I had my SG sitting on my bed and writing songs that I thought everybody was going to hear, and then I could be the next Paul Weller, that there was a career out there in front of me. And as I've done this film, I mean, I thought it was going to be a bitch fest. I thought everybody's going to say, oh my God, Spotify ruined my life or whatever. Just they're an easy target. But here's some of the things I've heard people say. And then I'm going to ask a question. I've heard people say things like, I don't listen to music. I don't buy music. I buy music every day. Spotify made my life easier. I hate Spotify. They ruined my life. The t-shirt is my real product. My record is my calling card. I miss record companies. The last thing I'd ever want is a record company. If I wasn't optimistic, I wouldn't even be in this game. So basically what we're finding out here is what William Goldman always said. Nobody knows anything, right? Patrick Preston.
Yes, sir.
How are you facing your career? How have you set it up for you to be sitting in that studio? And this is what you do.
Right. Absolutely. And as you were going through that list, I found myself saying a lot of those different things at a certain point. Honestly, it's just by coincidence. Today is my first day actually being back in one of my spaces that I work out of. Like 2 days, like maybe an hour ago, I came here, made sure I had my laptop and the internet was cool. And so, with this pandemic that's been going on, it's been really, I wouldn't say really challenging. It's actually been kind of cool for me to just kind of have opportunity to be creative, not with your normal elements, but to your point, as it relates to music and the output and everything, I'm really more optimistic and more excited than I've been in quite some time. With knowing just the different avenues that your music can go to, versus, having someone to tell you how it goes, or, sometimes your music may be more successful overseas versus, here in the States. So, I think we're in a cool time right now.
Sarah Borges, when all this started, when this pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, I was supposed to be in Europe. I was leaving for Europe March 21st, and I was going to be doing stuff. And, it's like, oh my God, life sucks now, right? So I got a little depressed for a while, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I decided I was going to get involved in making this movie because I couldn't go do my TV show either. And I thought, maybe this is our opportunity. Maybe this is our punk rock moment to storm the gates and take something over that we never, ever had control of. What happened to you? What went on in your mind?
I started when I was really young touring. I was probably not really young, but 22 maybe, and have been at it kind of ever since. And I went through a lot of the same feelings you did, where I felt like that big break was so imminent. I could taste it, and that happened multiple times, and then it didn't. But I've sort of come to be at peace with where my career is at now, which involves a lot of touring and not a lot of fame. And that's okay. It feels okay. But I have no idea what the next step is, because my entire livelihood is just based on touring. So, I have a child too. And so that changes things a lot, just in terms of what my bottom line is, and so I used to tour for 10 days and then come home and be with him, and that was sustainable economically speaking. But with that gone, it's looking more and more like, just to support him and myself, we'll have to sort of think about some kind of alternative, because the live stream thing is so wonderful and people are so generous, but I think there's a fatigue that's starting to happen as people's unemployment runs out and as they're sort of becoming accustomed to the new scenario. It's not a new and exciting thing to attend a live stream as much as it was at the beginning,
Yeah, that's really true. And some people have really found a way to make the live streaming thing work. K Phillips, I'm talking to you actually, because I'm hearing all the time, oh my God, you got to tune in and see K Phillips. What have you done that has made people become regulars?
First of all, I've taken a couple of weeks off to try to, I got better gear, mainly for the live stream. And I've learned how to try to use better lighting and stuff that's good for streaming, like the Mevo camera. But I think one thing that I do is, and it was a hindrance in the live show, is that I don't like to do a song the same way twice. I sometimes will make up songs on the spot. It's a little bit more interactive, which was such a hindrance for me live, because I would have managers and they would say, you got to go song to song. Let's be professional. And it's more about playing with the people that show up, and they'll give ideas of, like, we made a song about Derek up last time, who was an engineering friend who was running the soundboard, and just things like that. And I don't know if I've seen a drop off or an add-on of people, but I know that like there'll be one or two people that will always throw in money, you know, and that kind of helps. So
You're
it's
using
not.
a tip jar.
Yes, yeah. At first, I didn't even know until one of the viewers was like, "Where do we tip you?" Which sounds so silly, but I used the Mevo camera and I put a little guy in the bottom that says like, "Here's my Venmo." And one time I actually like put somebody else's Venmo named Karen Phillips, and I guess she got some money. So
So Karen probably did get some. Did she forward
Yeah.
it to you?
good for her.
Are you at all
Tough for
when you're doing these, Kay? Are you paying attention how many people are there? You're like, oh my God, 38 people are here, and then the next song was like 12. It's like, oh God.
Yes, I try not to look at it during a song because I think like, oh, they're leaving because they didn't like this lyric, but I know it's delayed. So yeah, I try not to look at that. But I mean, honestly, I've never had, I mean, one time maybe I had 100 people at a live stream on Facebook. But as soon as it ends, it always says, you know, there's 1,500 people watching. So I guess there's a lot of people just like checking in and be like, I don't want to be a part of this, which I probably wouldn't either, you know?
Yeah, it's got to be kind of awkward just from that standpoint of knowing people are responding to you in the middle of a song.
Right. Sometimes I'll go on to people's live streams and they'll say, "Hey, Kay," and I'll be like, "Damn it, now I have to stay here."
Yeah.
Matt York, you're doing some of those, right?
I was at first. I haven't done any the last month or so. I've been like posting videos, songs here and there, but yeah, I did a couple right off the bat, and I enjoy watching them from some of my friends that do them and stuff. But I agree with, I think it was Sarah that said, I do feel like there's I feel like the numbers are kind of dropped on a lot of the ones that I enjoy seeing, which, you know, I guess this was kind of inevitable. But you know, it's nice to see friends who it's nice to see friends who I only see a couple times a year if they're coming through town or vice versa. And then, you know, it's nice to be like, oh, hey, there's him in his living room. But, you know, after a couple times, I'm not sure how many times I need to see the living room. So
And
I don't
it's
know.
funny because I was interviewing somebody right at the beginning of this for this film, and it was like 10 days in at the most. They said, "Oh, sofa concerts are dead." 10 days in, you know, it's like, oh, I'm already done with it. I'm writing this off totally, and they were hosting a bunch of them, so which was kind of amusing.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like, I mean, I write all my songs are like super depressing, and I just feel like that's the last thing people need right now is me being like, you know, love's hard or something, you know. So
you're on your couch doing The Needle and the Damage Done over and over and over.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like they don't need me, you know. So
You're writing country songs, so you have to be depressing.
that's right. I have no choice. So
Cory Folz, you're in a little different situation than a lot of us in the stance that you are. You make most of your income as a performing musician as a sideman, for the most part, and you're also working in music retail. Can you contrast? You know, it seems like music retail is doing really well, and obviously, it's going to be a while for you out gigging regularly.
Yeah, I went from doing about 150 gigs last year to literally zero.
Wow.
And as far as the music retail stance goes, our company was in a good position because we are an online retailer. All the mom and pops around us were shut down. We were still able to do our online selling because we were able to mitigate any kind of concerns as far as the COVID went, and we were able to keep going. And yeah, sales were absolutely incredible. You know, we sent more packages of strings to New York City, to California, to Washington State than we ever have before.
Incredible. Is Sweetwater your competition?
Yes, yes, they sure are. And they're in the same state as us. They're several hours away, but we're not anywhere near their level. We're a mom and pop store. We're a very large mom and pop store, but a mom and pop nonetheless.
Yeah, but you're killing it. It's great.
Yeah, they're doing an excellent job. And one of the things I would say about more music is you make people wear masks, which is rare in our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
God bless
Always,
you.
always right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about gigging, Cory? I mean, I know, we've been asked to do several gigs, but we're not going to do them. And I know that you can't always say no.
It's a scary thing. I went and did a private party. It was my first gig since, I believe, February. Did a private party out in the middle of nowhere for about 60 people. And it's hard to stay distanced as a musician. People want to talk to the entertainers in front of them. They hire you because they feel a connection to you and they want to get to know you better. So having to put the mask on in between sets and keep people at a distance is a tough thing. As far as our local music scene goes, the governor of Indiana is allowing performances coming up starting this week, but things are at half capacity, I believe, and everyone's scared, because we know we're going to have encounters with the people that are working in the bar, and especially patrons. And most of the gigs are at bars, so the whole people under the influence of alcohol, and they kind of lose inhibitions a bit, and it's hard to keep yourself separated from that.
That's right. Sal, I know you're much in demand as a session player, but also as a live bassist. I have to believe, being in New York City in particular, this is just, wow, smack in the face.
Yeah, New York City's epicenter, and where we are, Jackson Heights, Queens, about a month ago, was the epicenter of the epicenter. I mean, the hospital here was all over the news. It was overloaded, and they couldn't handle the influx of patients. It was really serious, and it's calmed down quite a bit. But I went to zero as a working bass player. As far as sessions and live work, I have projects that I've done about to come out, a couple of records. One's coming out next week, getting really good reviews so far, and another one should follow. So there's things that I have done that are forthcoming. I'm working on another book, but my publisher is being cagey. So if you're listening, Todd, what's up? And I DJ also. And I only like to DJ when I can go to the actual studio where there's a nice setup for me of turntables and CD players. I have no interest in doing it at home, so things have quieted down, but I'm doing various, let's say, activities to keep myself getting through this.
Yeah. When do you have, like, as Cory was saying, in Indiana, we can start next week, technically. Do you have any idea about New York?
New York is the lowest curve now because of Cuomo. He's following all the guidelines. He's having all the New Yorkers have been amazingly cooperative up until about Saturday night, when there were 2,500 people on St. Mark's Place getting takeout drinks in the street without masks and social distancing. And we also don't know what the protest situation is going to bring next week or in 2 weeks. But so far, we went from, top of the mountain down to almost zero, because whether you like his politics or not, Cuomo has been a hero, and he's been working his tail off every day with daily briefings. And I don't know if you get them in other parts of the country.
Oh, yeah.
But he's obviously substitute for who is supposed to be guiding us through this horrible situation. And a lot of
But
people,
are they doing a carrot and stick with you at all, Sal? Like, oh, hey, on August 15th, you can start going back into bars and playing or whatever.
I have my plans are to follow these guidelines until I'm told that it's safe to not follow the guidelines. I'm not in any hurry to get out there. And, I'm not some 25-year-old kid that wants to, I'm done. I'm taking off the mask. I'm going out in the street. I'm not in any hurry in any of that. My plan is follow the guidelines and be patient and come with May when the day comes when we can get back to what we need to do.
Well, I don't want to make all this about COVID, but one thing that I've noticed that has happened, and we'll get into other things after this, I've had the opportunity to work with people I never would have had the opportunity to work with, sending stems back and forth across the ocean, all that fun stuff. Kay, have you been doing anything like that? Have you been collaborating with anybody that you never would have had the opportunity, or been doing anything in general like that?
Were you asking?
Have you had the opportunity to work on things?
Sorry, I muted.
Have you had the opportunity to work on
Joe
things that you never would have had a chance to work on before because of being shut in, and sending emails to different people and saying, hey, you want to play drums on my track? And they say, well, why not? Send me the stems. That's what I'm getting at.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because I started working with a friend of mine, Mark Abernathy, who's a Berkeley guy, who's he's really a photographer, but I went to his house and he's like this great jazz piano player, and he's got 3 children and they're all great musicians. And during COVID, I took my Hammond C3 and my Leslie 122 to his house. Well, also I was getting kicked out of my house, so it wasn't just a gift, it was a way for me to make sure this thing stayed safe. And we started working on music together, and he was like, I have a friend who I went to Berkeley with who could play drums on it. And it turns out to be this guy from a band called, I don't know the band, but the guy was supposed to go on tour with Gwen Stefani or something. And he's played with Lady Gaga, which is not really a style of drummer I would have normally picked. But so we tracked I've never done this before. We tracked the vocal and everything and the acoustic guitar, and we sent it off to him. And so, yeah, I guess I have been doing that. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been asked to play bass on things even. That's crazy. I mean, I know.
Wow, people must be desperate.
That. Yeah, people are definitely desperate. Patrick, I bet you're set up to do all sorts of stuff like that at home.
Oh yeah. And I actually have gotten many calls in reference to just laying tracks for B3 Oregon. And so I've been doing a lot of that. To what Kay was saying, basically having a certain style that you're looking for. I think we as musicians, we could be introverts, but we know a lot of other musicians. And if we're trying to get the job done, it's just like, hey, I need to call this person, or somebody may be working, or they may not be able to do it, or whatever the case. But so it's kind of been a lot of the same for me, if you will, just in reference to working remote, so of course, there's a lot you can do inside the box, in the box as far as, mimicking certain things. But at the end of the day, of course, if you want it a certain way, if you need a live musician or whatever, you make the call and make the things happen,
And people are actually kind of open to things right now, simply because we're sitting on our hands here a lot of times, just trying to come up with ideas. Sarah, are you set up to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Eric Amble earlier, but we've kind of devised this sort of MacGyver way of recording where he sets up a Pro Tools session, and we pick, we get a tempo going, and then I record a voice memo on my phone. I got one of those Shure MV88 kits, and it comes with the mic and everything and the software on your phone for the app. So it sounds pretty good, but I'll record a session on my voice memos. They'll snap it into the Pro Tools, and we just keep doing it that way. And there's a little bit of delay, but I don't have a Pro Tools rig at home, so we sort of just jerry rigged it, and it's been working out beautifully. So, but we've had some folks play on it that I never would have expected to be able to collaborate with. So that's been sort of a little blossoming that's happened in the midst of all this.
Well, and Matt, we know you don't like to work with anybody. You're an absolute loner. I know you put out some songs during this.
I did, yeah. I put out a single. It's funny, like, I was just finishing up an album right before this happened, and so I think like the Wednesday before the world shut down, I had been in the studio, and we were getting really close. So we've kind of been going back and forth with some mixes. I've sent over some tracks and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I haven't done anything beyond that really, because we were so close to being done. So it kind of, it's tough there are a few things where I'm like, oh, if I could just get back in there and do this or that. So hopefully soon I'll be able to do that. So
I know Cory and I, we've sent files back and forth. How has that been as an experience? I mean, we're used to being in the same room.
Yeah, it's been really different. Just figuring out how I can do tracks on my own and send them back and forth. Like you said in the intro, I've been primarily a performing bass player, and any kind of studio work has been contracted work where I walk into a set up studio and go to work. So for me to provide that ability to myself has been really big, and it's caused me to change my focus. I found out that doing so many cover gigs and trying to stay as busy as I wanted to stay, I was neglecting my own creativity, and the reasons why I got into music in the first place is because I love music and I love creating music. And it got to the point where my career was very pedestrian in that it was one cover gig to the next, which is lucrative for a family man like myself. I don't have to go out on the road. I can work a couple weeknights in restaurants, a couple weekend nights in clubs, and make some decent money for myself and my family. But having all of that shut down kind of centered me a bit musically, and has kind of gotten the creative juices flowing again. And one thing was being able to record the tracks that I did with you. I never thought I could record upright bass on my own, but we did it, and you're going to hear it on your record here very soon.
Yeah, well, I've already heard it.
Yeah.
Sal, I think it's funny. We're roughly the same age, and I think about all the things that I'm talking about. Just think how impossible some of this stuff was. Not 20 years ago.
Say that again?
Just think how impossible some of these things we're discussing were 20 years ago when we were starting out, or longer.
No, 20 years ago might as well be 20 months ago. I mean, it's that little of change in 20 years from my perspective anyway. I mean, that I've seen.
Well, I just think about, reading your book and that meeting, I can't remember who it was from Roxy Music, came to the record store, and all of a sudden you're thrown into a studio. That's just a totally different animal than what we're faced with today.
Yeah, it's I can't imagine a scenario like that happening now, or like you said, even 20 years ago. The world has changed radically. The music situation, like you guys all have home setups, and this is the time to have a home setup, a home studio, any kind of home setup. I depend on literally being called and going to a studio or going to do a gig. As a matter of fact, I got called for a one song session that I had to decline because it was right at the Monday of the start of the shutdown. So I had to pass on that. And as I said, there are projects that I have done that are about to be released, but the stuff I describe in the book they're not possible in the last, I would say, since the early 90s. It's a different map out there for musicians, in my viewpoint. But
it's funny how fast things have changed since, say, 2000. Okay, Sal. Yeah. And then it just seems like you said, it's changed so quickly in the last year, even. Forget COVID. How do you think you've conditioned yourself to ride that wave, from the 70s to now?
Well, I think my fortune or my luck is because of the type of people I've played with puts me in I don't want to call them cult bands or what would be another word for, I've definitely played with a certain type of artist. So I'm kind of known for that, and I kind of get called for that. And conversely, it keeps my name and my reputation alive in a certain quarter of the community, the music community, especially here in New York. I haven't done, Bon Jovi, or I haven't done a high profile gig like, just any kind of high profile gig. I've done gigs of artists that are definitely in a certain genre of music and have a certain following, and it's almost clustered together. So the fan base kind of cross-pollinates with each other. So I'm known for a certain type of thing. And I think that's the reason why my name stays out there. And I've been able to survive for a long time.
Yeah. And with a certain je ne sais quoi, I might add, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really appreciative of any of that. When they call you, legendary, or what's the other word? Veteran,
Venerable.
No, veteran. Those are all good things, It means I'm still here. I'm still around, still working. My name's still out there. And I'm very thankful for that.
One of the things I'm dealing with right now is that doing this film, I've realized that I'm kind of old fashioned, and I never thought I always thought, oh man, I'm this progressive guy and I'm on top of stuff, and I'm realizing, in a lot of ways, I'm telling these kids to get off my lawn. And this is the first record I've made that I'm about to release that is an all digital release, and it's freaking me out. And and particularly right now during the time of COVID, it's like, how do you even promote anything? Sarah, I got to believe you're working on something.
Yeah, I mean, we've started a new record just during the COVID time, just by that manner of recording that I had talked about. But, for touring people, I think the records are always the bread and butter, because whatever you make from selling the records from the stage is usually your gas and hotel money. So that source of income is another facet that we're missing too, So, but, you're right. I think trending towards digital releases in this time period and situation that we're in, sort of seems to be the natural next step. But I miss shaking the hand and signing the record, and there's that personal connection that you just don't get. And I don't know how to replicate that.
Well, it's funny.
I've known Eric Gamble for about 40 years and never played with him, ever. We played with dozens of people in common and have never played with one another. I've heard your name lately, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, I know, so you've never played with Roscoe?
I've never played with the wonderful Roscoe.
Yeah, he's
one of the best studio people around.
He is. And he's no nonsense, and he's just
brilliant. But we played with, he's played with people I've played with a number of times, but we've never ever played together. I don't know how we managed to avoid each other. And I'm talking going back to the 70s.
Yeah.
You know,
I
when
think you're gonna have to get Sal on your speed dial, Sarah.
Yeah, I know. We're going to need you.
So who else has got something coming out? Kay, I know you're recording.
Yes, I had a record slated to come out prior to this pandemic, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just actually really enjoying setting up a studio and avoiding writing and recording. So.
Well, how do you figure out you're going to break through the noise, you know, in this time, because everybody's doing everything?
Oh, I just gave up on that a long time ago. I have like 40 fans and that's fine with me. So,
yeah, you got more than 40 fans. I see this.
I mean, I don't plan on breaking through the noise. There's so many better people at making noise than me, but I just really enjoy the craft and I like learning new things. And I think that's why people get into this, industry, so they can just make stuff. And it's actually, when I was touring, there was no time to do stuff like this. It was all go, go, go. And, I didn't even know that people liked the slow songs because there were always people talking during them. And now I realize like those are the things people want, especially at times like this.
Yeah.
So I don't plan on breaking through, but I do plan on making something new, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, you've had those breakthrough moments though already. You know, you've had some pretty heady things. I've seen you several times, and it's hard probably to step away from that.
It is. And, when I was first making this record, I wanted to make it with this guy, Danny Jones from New Orleans. And Danny moved to Houston because of Hurricane Katrina. And then we tried to make this record 3 times in Katy, Texas, and the studio flooded 3 times. So I've been trying to put out this record for like 2 or 3 years.
Did you rewrite anything?
What's that?
Did you rewrite any songs
Yes, it all got kind of redone. There was more stuff about Hurricane Katrina, and like one song in particular, there's this Fly By Night guy. Like there were a lot of bad things that happened around that event. So a lot of bad people, and so yeah, there was a lot of stuff rewritten. In the meantime, so.
Well, go for number 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now. I figured if I have the time, so. But,
Matt York, you were getting ready to go to South by, weren't you, when all this broke? And you've been playing everywhere, and I know you and I played places where we're playing the slow songs and everybody's talking. That's a tough thing to deal with.
It is, yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's funny. Like I remember, like it's funny when South by Southwest got canceled. There was a whole bunch of the kind of unofficial stuff that was still going on, and it's just funny to think like a week before the world shut down, we were like sitting there like, yeah, I know, we'll probably still go. It'll probably be fine. And then all of a sudden, I mean, that seems like 300 years ago now, And so, yeah, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine a path forward, but I'm kind of strangely optimistic that, once people are kind of let out of their cages here, that people are going to want to hear music and they're going to want to, and hopefully they'll go, so many, for here in Boston, you've seen so many clubs close over the past 10, 15 years. And, there's been a kind of loss of culture, I think, in a lot of different parts of the city. And I'm hopeful that some of that comes back, that people realize how much they miss it when they're sitting at home and they're just watching Netflix, that, they kind of reimagine what their nightlife might be like in the future. So we'll see.
There's that spark that is playing live, and we've been asked to do a couple of things. I'm not going to say where and embarrass anybody because we don't want to do them, but I keep thinking about, Cory in particular, us being in the car, driving somewhere, we got to stop and pee, we got to stop and eat, we got to find a flop house to stay in that we're used to staying in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Are you ready to do that? Maybe you are.
I am not exactly ready to go that far. at this point. You know, I got to come back home to my family. Yeah, and playing music just doesn't seem like it's worth the health of my family to do that. You know, as much as I love it and as much as I rely on it for my means of living, we can do without. Rice and beans are okay. Spaghetti with no meat is okay for a while we get past all of this.
So, I mean, are you ready though? I mean, I know you're going to play in a bar maybe in a week or two.
I am ready. It's those of us that are called to this music thing, it's because we love it. I mean, it's not for the money or the short hours, that's for sure. So, I mean, I think we're all ready to get back. It's just a matter of, is it safe? Is it safe for ourselves? Is it safe for the people around us? Yeah, I do have some gigs contracted, but I'm being as selective as I possibly can at this point. And hopefully everyone takes as much precaution and, instead of going out in the crowd and glad handing and all that stuff that we usually do on breaks, I'm probably going to be sitting off by myself, either in my automobile or away from people. I have a public job anyway, so I'm in close contact with people, handing people guitars, showing off equipment and instruments. So we're very careful in our shop about that, and I just want to kind of keep that moving forward. Been healthy so far, knock on wood, and would like to stay that way.
Let's change gears here a little bit. Patrick, I know you grew up playing, like your career started sort of in church. Your dad was a pastor, particularly growing up anyway. When you looked at this as a career, music as a career, and being in the church, was money involved there? Was it something that was just flowing out of you and it was just going to happen, or were there financial considerations?
There were financial considerations. I'll never forget it. I started out as a drummer and like really young, like 7 years old. And my grandfather is almost like the spokesperson of the county. He was president of NAACP. So this is real funny though. He went before the church and asked what they paid me, because I was always there, all of that. $5. And then there was another person that was coming up playing drums, so we shared the load. So we had to split
the $5
a week. I mean, it was yeah. So yeah, money was involved, and of course, the older I got, the more I understood as far as that. That went. Basically my role as far as church and money. So never go into a situation, especially with church, just it'd be about money, but you just kind of share what you're worth and avenues that you can help in, which honestly I haven't worked as strenuous maybe in the past 10 years in church for a while. So it's, I go and help out. I do play on staff with a church, and kind of like right now what we're doing is pre-production things. And so being able to do those type things in this time and being able to help them get output such as Zoom and, using OBS and different means to get the output. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, but what did that picture look like carving out a career?
It was very hard down south, I have to admit, because there was a lot of services and things like that going on, but the pay was not good at all. And then you would work more than you would actually get paid for. Honestly, you can be in a 40-hour-a-week job working at a church, and actually you're probably only using 10% of what you can do which gets kind of boring, gets kind of, monotonous. And so it was challenging. I have to admit, it was really challenging.
And you had to move to Evansville to make any money?
Yeah, well, see, like I've hit a couple of spots before I ended up in Evansville, but just kind of merging those elements, and a lot of musician friends that I have just kind of all across the US, all over the world, and just connecting, doing some tours, doing a lot of session work and wherever it may come up. I'm just kind of almost being like an all-around musician, producer, being able to affect change wherever I am.
Yeah, I mean, we've all definitely had to find ways to do it, right? I mean, Sal's written a book, make a TV show, things like that, so we can do it. Sarah, what was it looking like for you as you were trying to figure out a path?
It went really well at the beginning. We got a couple record deals really early on in our career, in my career, and I thought that was just what was supposed to happen normally. And then that, about 2007, 2008, all of that ceased to exist. So that was certainly a rude awakening to have a nice budget to make a record with, and now to go to crowdsource funding, which is a new thing entirely. So just sort of instances like that where you see the music industry changing, but inherently it's still the same. We still play songs that we love with people we love for money or no money. It doesn't really matter. And I think it's just the value that's assigned to that has sort of changed over time. It used to be a kind of a hot commodity to be in a rock band, and they would give you tour support and stuff. And now that's not. Kids can make records in their bedrooms. And
yeah, I mean, we can all make a record right now together and upload it. And
yeah. And on one hand, that freedom is beautiful, being able to collaborate wherever you are without a lot of constraints probably leads to a lot of stuff that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But just like anything else, the more there is of it, I think the less value we place on it because it's so easy to come by.
Sal, when you think about what she said about value, and I don't need a specific thing, but I mean, do you have a set thing, value in your mind, or is it situational?
Or just the way what?
Or is it just situational? Everything's different.
No, I didn't have a game plan, let's say. I just kind of went with the punches, rolled with the punches, and figured out as I went along. But as you were saying before, it's changed so much from, I would say, 90s, 95, 98 in there. Business has changed dramatically. When I was following my gut, it was possible to actually answer an ad, walk up to a person in a club, ask them if they're looking for a bass player, that kind of thing. And that's the way I did it. I figured it out on the fly without ever having done it before. Had zero experience, when I was out there pounding the pavement, especially when I went to London and had never even been there, had no friends, didn't know anybody. I just had to start from ground zero. So, but, there's a little bit of a game plan, but it's mostly improvised and learn as you go, learn on the fly.
So you think your value has changed over the years? That your way of looking at what value is, your own value?
The way of looking at it is, I'm grateful that I survived the business, that I'm still here, and still people ask me, and great people ask me to play with them. I'm so thankful for that. That I can get a call from Echo and the Bunnymen, that I can get a call, to do a session with the guys from Sonic Youth or whatever. I'm just appreciative of the fact that I'm a survivor. And in the music business, which is an incredibly hard and difficult business to survive in, you know. But
Absolutely.
what are we doing it for, right?
Right.
Us.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Matt, they're talking about getting paid. I mean, you and I drive long miles and not take anything home.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of nights that have cost me money. That's for sure. And you know, I it's hard to see how that improves. And I'm hopeful that it does. I'm not for you and I, but you know, just in general. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was kind of a young punk years ago, and you know, same, you know, you could sell CDs and you could sell T-shirts and you could make a little bit of money, you know, at a you know, it's just like under all ages shows and things like that, and I don't think that type of revenue is there anymore, and which is tough. But you know, I feel like most musicians, we do it because we don't really have a choice. Like it's kind of what we do, and I feel like a lot of us are kind of optimistic anyway. Just figure we'll find a path forward, right? So that's my hope.
Well, and you know, it's hard not to do it again when you get some positive response.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've had a really hard time writing during this because, you know, for me, like I'll write a song and then I feel like once I've actually played it out live, that it's kind of gone through the cycle, and then I can move on to another song, or I'll go into the studio and record it and then move on. And like, I don't know, I haven't really been able to you know, I was like, oh, I have more time than I've had my entire life, really. Yeah. But I'm not able to, like, I'm like, oh boy, I didn't write 30 songs the last 3 months. So, you know, it's funny how that's happened, and I get stuck on kind of the same couple of songs or the same couple of riffs, but I haven't been able to, you know, be prolific at all during this time. So,
well, the funny thing for me was it's kind of the opposite. I feel like I've got all this time on my hands, and if I have any idea, I better put it down or my legacy's gone. Whatever it is, it's like, oh my God. And then we all die anyway, and there's nobody to hear it.
Right.
Hey, have you been able to get off the snide creatively?
Yeah, I think the live stream kind of fuels that. For a long time, I wasn't playing and I was just recording, and I couldn't really write because I don't know where the truth lies until I'm, you know, saying it in front of a microphone in front of people who don't care to be there, you know, like in front of somebody's boyfriend who's just like, I don't know, man, just do your thing, you know. So if I can say those words like in front of this guy, then and maybe connect, then I feel like it's something that I can record, you know. But I'm not trying to sell the live stream on anybody, but like I feel like as a writer, it helps as a writer to have those avenues to go like, is this total BS, or does this line, you know, work? Like the way comedians, like I know comedians are trying to do Zoom and stuff right now, and it just, until you hear those crickets, like you don't know if a joke is bombing or not. You know?
Sarah Cooper.
What's that?
Except for Sarah Cooper.
Oh
yeah.
I'm thinking about having Sarah Cooper mimic all of you when we really release this thing later on.
I mean, that is incredibly funny.
Oh, she's amazing.
Amazing.
My gosh. Let's invite her over.
Musician, right? With that ear?
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Sarah, are you being creative now?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple in the can. It's hard to think about what to write about. I think, I'm not sure who said this, but maybe Matt, that it's hard to write a love song right now because there's just so much going on in the world, you know, outside of COVID-19, and so many things that I feel strongly about. And I feel like those should be where my focus is. But I don't have any experience writing political songs, and I don't have experience writing about things outside of my purview. So I guess because we're in this crisis, I feel compelled to make some kind of commentary through songwriting, but I really don't know how. So I'm just trying to stick my toe in the water with that a little bit, and address what I'm feeling right now. But it's really hard to go from like, he loves me, ooh, ooh, to like, you know, I don't know if I'll ever see my friends again. I may die soon. This is just, it's a 180, definitely.
Yeah, it's a conundrum. I mean, it's really easy to, as internalists as we tend to be, you know, creatively, we process all this stuff. It's easy to get depressed, I think.
Yeah, it isn't even, for me, it's not so much about depression as feeling like I am being irresponsible if I don't address the immediate matters at hand. And I will use this verb not with a capital T, but I feel like world matters kind of trump what's, you know, whatever piddly things I typically write about. So that's sort of where I'm at. You know, I think there's a lot of great political music coming out right now. There's a lot of great protest music, and there's a lot of human condition music happening, which is the side effect of where we're at. And I'm glad for that. You know, I don't know what the audience's reception will be to that, if they just want some kind of escape and they're not wanting to hear that. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. Who really knows? I think the only thing we can really do is take a stab.
Yeah, we're lucky here in Massachusetts because we're only in the beginning of phase 2, which means nothing is open. You know, you can eat outside at a restaurant, but that's it really. So playing out live is so far away that, as Kay was saying, I feel like I have a lot of time to sort of try these songs out before I have to face the music, as it were, and play them in front of a live audience.
Right. Cory, you know, what I think is interesting is during this time when people are struggling financially, it seems like people are still buying instruments. You know, it's not just at your store. I mean, I've just seen, you know, a lot of the big box ones, you know, obviously are doing well, or they're so over leveraged that they act like they're doing well. What's your feeling about that?
It has been incredibly strong from the get-go since the states started shutting down one by one. We saw a large increase in sales, and it wasn't just small items. It wasn't just strings. I mean, people were buying $2,000 to $5,000 guitars throughout all of this, and still continue to do that. I think we saw trends in the MI retail industry that mirrored other hobby industries. A friend of mine works at a golf store, and they recently opened, and he said sales are through the roof. They're doing like Christmas-like numbers right now because
bike shops too.
Yeah, they're tired of being cooped up, and at least from my perspective as an MI retailer, you know, they were looking for things to do in their house. They were getting their kids involved, so you know, instruments were sold to kids, to adults. We did a lot of strings, straps, a lot of the digital recording devices. The small DAWs and things like that were really hot items. People want to have something to do other than drink and watch Netflix, and music is a good source.
Learning to play instruments. My niece, who's 14, is playing bass all of a sudden.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
She's quarantining. They said she disappears for 3-4 hours at a time. And they hear her playing Painted Black and Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, I've had the same experience, Sal, with my 15-year-old. He went from tinkering around a little bit on bass and playing a little bit of ukulele to turning himself into a pretty daggone good guitar player, and he's really been working on his bass playing. Yeah, so these kids feel it too. They've been locked up. You know, my 15-year-old has been basically locked up inside of our house for months, with nothing but a phone to connect with the outside world. So it's been a great outlet for him.
Yeah.
So let's kind of sum all this up and move on down the highway a little bit. Let's kind of discuss a little bit about how we're constantly reinventing ourselves to figure out how we're going to exist. We were doing that before COVID, but all of a sudden this is a big bump, and it's taken away, you know, our live opportunities, the way I actually make any money playing music other than doing sync things. Matt, I mean, how are you staying? We say we're optimistic and everything, but how are you staying forward thinking? Do you have a strategy you've developed, or is it just something like, whoa, I'm reacting?
Yeah, I guess I just believe that there's always going to be a need for what, kind of indie musicians bring to the table. And that, I know that my friends and people that I've met through the years, we like to be together and we like to hear each other's songs and things like that. So I feel like somehow this is going to go forward and be okay. But I think it's going to take some time, unfortunately. And I can't imagine being in a situation where I needed to tour or something because I think it's just hard to envision what life's going to be like in the fall, or early next year. So, I do think long term it's going to be okay, and hopefully it'll even be better. But it's hard to see what that's going to look like just yet.
How do you feel about it? I mean, do you feel like it's?
I think, I feel like it's going to be okay. I feel like you and I might have been talking about this, but I feel like there's going to be a ton of like really great punk music that's going to come out of this. Like, I feel like there's a whole bunch of like angry 15-year-olds who like can't stand their parents and are just in their basement, like, screaming. And so I'm excited to hear their music, down the road. And certainly the protest too. I think there's going to be a lot of great protest music as well that's going to come out of this. So I'm excited to hear it.
I hope so. Kay, how are you feeling about it all?
I hope I can keep doing live streams and retire from the road. Keep all the money.
There you go.
Yes.
Well, I think you even told me when we interviewed you for the film that, why drive to Lincoln, Nebraska when you can just stay in Austin and get the same result?
Yeah, it's definitely not the same. And I do want to play for people, but it allowed me to play for people who live in middle America and who live in Australia or Ireland, places I'm not able to go right now, or places that are cost prohibitive for me to go. So, and then I don't have to take a band and somebody doesn't have a relapse, and I have to bail somebody out of jail.
That's never happened.
No. No, they bailed me out. So but I like it, and I like being able to play the slow songs. And I'm sorry, what was the question?
Bailing someone out of jail.
Yeah, that is the story. But I mean, the future looks bright.
I hope so. I hope we can keep doing this. It may go away, but I think some good things came out of this isolation. I don't wish it. I wouldn't do it over again, but it allowed people to be creative from home, and I enjoy that.
Cory, as you're looking forward, I mean, as a musician, not as a retailer, I mean, your check comes from playing gigs.
Yeah, and I'm not sure things will ever get back to completely normal as we knew it before all of this. I think we as a society are going to be back on our heels a little bit more once this thing finally transpires in the full capacity. So it remains to be seen. I mean, I'm hopeful. I've been doing this full time in music for 2 years, but worked 30 to 40 hours a week part time for 20 years before. So whatever happens. I want to get out there and perform because that's what I've always done. But we'll just have to see. It's play it by ear.
Where we live, it's not the same as some of these people where they live.
Yeah.
People here have acted like this didn't even happen. So
Yeah.
That's worth. Patrick, how are you feeling about everything you do? I know you work on film soundtracks. You work on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping that we definitely revisit the Vegas stage plays that I was working on. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they shut all of shows down for the rest of the year in Vegas. So, but I'm real excited about about, of course, doing those things. But just recently, there's a performing arts conservatory in Indianapolis. They're working on a movie. It's kind of like a movie short. They're going to release it. I think he's on Vimeo, or I can't remember the other one, but it's going to be about suicide. Just kind of the whole thing that, you know, youth deal with suicide and things like that. So even in coming out of this, like, even like Cory said, it's going to be something different. I'm excited about working with the kids on it, because we're going to be doing like the ADR, you know, the Foley. They're going to do it, I mean, all from scratch. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Not so much as gigging. I have a band. We've been working, I think somebody mentioned it, said they was working on an album for 2 years. It's probably been about 2.5 for us. And I'm looking forward to releasing it, but I'm not really looking forward to being the band that's just do these tour runs and things like that. Just not. I mean, there's just so many other things and so many other ways that we can, you know, output our material and, you know, be creative in that. So,
Sarah, how are you feeling about things? I mean, do you feel like, well, you know, I can weather this, or do you think that office job is in your future?
I just don't have any skills. I'm a really good van driver, so I thought about being a delivery driver, but, you know, other than that, I'm 20 years in, so it would be a shame to give up this career. But, you know, stuff really does rise from the ashes, and it will remain to be seen what it'll look like on the back end. But I think that, at the risk of sounding cliche, the flame of creativity, it does burn throughout. And, you know, I'm glad for this reset, whatever it looks like. It, you know, it was not perfect before, and it may not be the same or perfect again, but I'm interested to see what the next generation of touring musicians looks like. You know, I don't plan on doing that for at least a year, maybe 2. That to me is what feels like reality for a touring musician. As you mentioned, you know, you see so many people on a daily basis that I think we kind of have to take the long view and be on the long end of the spectrum when we get back to work.
You feel like you're going through a change as far as artistically because of that? You know, I'm going to put this out and I can't go out and support it.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about forced acceptance that really will make you think. And there's absolutely nothing I can do. And so I'm going to sit here and take it, but I'm going to take it like a champ and just keep on going, I guess. Touring may never be a reality in terms of what I do to support myself and my family anymore. That might be gone now. And I'm trying to come to some kind of terms with that because it is my greatest love other than my family. So I miss all the crappy parts even. I'm just a road dog and I love it, every part of it. So that's really hard to let go of.
I mean, Sal, to take what she said a little farther, I mean, the bottom line is this is just so much fun, what we do. And, you know, it's like a drug in the sense that you don't even have to do drugs. You just go out and play a good show and it's just like grabs you. I mean, you've seen it all change. Is this time right now that bigger than any change that you've seen in the industry?
I think 2020 is an absolutely pivotal historical year. I'm an optimist by nature, but even with that, I don't see us getting back to normal, what we knew as normal, as far as gigging or going to a restaurant next year, next summer, next fall. And I hope I'm wrong, but yet in the middle of it all, as what was Matt saying, could be an explosion of 15, 16-year-old kids that are now learning to play instruments that in the next couple of years will turn out to be an incredibly creative period for music. And then the other side of the coin, in the middle of everything, you have a 79-year-old guy named Bob Dylan releasing a 17-minute song right in the middle of the pandemic, which is one of the most incredible things you've ever heard in your life. least I think so. So, anything's possible. But as I said, I don't see gigging and, going out to restaurants and normal stuff like that happening, I guess, until we get a vaccine or some sort of deterrent to it's gonna spread if we all cluster together. That's just the bottom line. But it's like you said, it's different for you where you are. New York here, it's real.
I wouldn't even think of coming to visit,
Yeah, just hang out in your backyard.
Yeah. I'm lucky. They're farming right now, obviously. But, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, what William Goldman said, that nobody knows anything. And that may be why we're optimistic. We just have to make it up as we go.
They're also the experts are figuring it out as they go. They've never seen anything like this. They don't know. 1 minute it's you can get it by touching something. Now they're saying absolutely not. So it changes daily. So who knows? Maybe we're all wrong and we'll be back doing this in November, hopefully.
Well, we can only hope, and I hope to see you all in person soon.
Absolutely.
We got to thank Eventide. Everybody say, thank you, Eventide.
Thank you.
Eventide.
For the H9 we're giving away to Patrick Preston.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, James, for helping us out. Thank you, everybody, for paying attention, or if you're watching after the fact. Hope to see you all soon.
See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.